Hey everybody, welcome back. What you're watching right now is the landing page of the Kojima Productions website. And of course we delved into his most recent investigation into a video game creation last video with Death Stranding. This is just a general set of images that's going across the screen, but it's curious that we didn't cover this in the last video, but I want to get into this in a second. I want you to remember from Sapiens to Ludens, and then also look right here, we've got a curious V, number 5, coming across the screen. My last video touched on all these topics. It's right here. Sorry for the double up on the images there. We began talking about the Florida Maquis DC Parasite Network, which he has labeled right here on his latest KMZ file that is available on his channel, and how it relates to potentially what the plot of this Death Stranding game is, this being a badge for that Death Stranding game. I'm going to be first to tell you that I put a disclaimer down here as well. There was some great difficulty uploading the audio to this. Only when I was trying to publish it originally to YouTube did some of the stuff around the marks when I was talking about memes and how they infect their hosts, and the vocal cord parasites from his other game, Metal Gear Solid 5, did we get some jittering. So I do think the message was actually gotten across, even without the missing couple seconds of audio where the dead air kind of came in. But just for reference sake, to state it a little bit more clearly, what I'm intimating at with this game is that potentially there is a mimetic language virus that's being cast on all of us from the DC Parasite Network with the various programming techniques that are available to them. The EarthGrid network is one that not many people know about, of course, so I think it's very easy to capture the energy on the ley lines, use the structures on the ley lines to their advantage. Of course, we've got the Pentagon structure here in DC, and most of these points on the map that Florida Maquis has found, go into the file itself, especially lately up here in the Nordic regions. It's all coming together with an incredibly, uncannily, indisputable pattern of pentagonal structures. And what he was talking about in his last video about the number 5, and how he was talking about serpents, Ouroboros here. Ser is to be, pent 5 is to be 5. So there's something going on with the structure of the number 5 as it relates to the mimetic structure of a person's ability to be consumed by the influence of whatever's happening from the Pentagon here in DC. And I'm going to get into that by the end of this video. I promised you in the last one we would go into the other books, Graham Hancock's book, of course. I'll just put that up here, and talk about how the serpents even relate to this. But it all circles around the number 5. It's all about number 5. In fact, in my last video, I didn't really even get to the point where I pointed out, this totally escaped me. I mean, I came in expecting I was going to share it, but another curious number 5 with the latest, what I now believe is steganography rather than iconography. Since I've made the last video, I've also gotten some other conclusions around what is going on with this baby, and what happened with, if you recall, the January 22nd date of the dropout. But first, getting back to reviewing the number 5s, we have the V for Metal Gear Solid, we have the 5 on the death, basically the new landing page for Kojima Productions, ever present. We've got the Pentagon 5s, and we also have the 5s that I'm going to also talk about from the ancient Atlanteans and what 5 represents, and tie it all back around to why it connects with serpents and snakes and the like. It's very interesting stuff. So, kind of another thing I missed here, tying up the last video, is that, interestingly enough, Those are the titles I'm making for my videos, if you guys saw, just for word count's sake and all transparency. Saw a little bit behind the scenes. Anyway, oh, where was I at? This one right here, around the Washington, D.C. area. I forgot to mention that our story with Elizabeth Holmes, the Blood Lady, the epic continues. She was born in the Washington, D.C. area. So in my opinion, this is too close for coincidence. I think she may be one of these overarching parasites, mimetic parasites in our society today. And her story is very interesting and important for us to understand. But for us to truly understand the implication of that, we also have to look back at the last video and remember the concept of this baby. And I hadn't yet come around to a conclusion or yet drawn a theory, maybe is a better word for what this baby represents. There's a weird spiritual connection with these ghosts that we're seeing in the game, in this weird etheric realm, of course, that I was pointing out last time, right? And the veil that they seem to be behind, and this baby connected to its mother in the real world, and it's somehow being used. Its energy is being consumed through this connecting of the parasite network. And I just had a thought afterward to go look into the Reproductive Health Act. This is the Abortion Act that was put into place in New York with the famous Empire State Building turning pink to commemorate it. I think this is actually a different article that showed, yeah, this is from actually a women's breast cancer thing. I apologize, guys. But just like this is essentially, the picture was commemorated the same way. They lit up the top of the needle just like this when they passed this bill into play earlier this year and became law. And essentially allows the abortion to come full term, or rather the pregnancy to come full term, and for a woman to still opt for an abortion and have it not be considered murdered. So this is a really weird act that passed, but as we find out, look at the day. January 22nd, 2019. The same day as the myth-making episode of the Dropout comes in. I think there's some more wordplay going on here with the Dropout. I'm not really sure yet. Money, romance, tragedy, deception. Story of Elizabeth Holmes, right? The Blood Lady and myth-making. This is a meme. I come back to this, and this is a major meme that we're missing. They're missing the mark on something going on here, and there's no doubt that in my mind that this is coincidental. So there's something going on with all of these strands. Death stranding. And I think it's weird that the strand of the umbilical cord is represented, and that this basically legalizes infantile murder, right? Death, and this cyclical myth that we have around it being okay, that we're doing this as a society. It's a weird meme that's being propagated from the Parasite Network, and I think we're starting to get a picture of what this Parasite Network is being used for. The telecommunications bridges that we all use to access that network. And I think that maybe I'm beginning to realize that this is more of a political commentary of the world of our devices that we live in, that we're slogging through, and I don't know. There's something to all this imagery. Here's again the abortion right there on the barbed wire, right? On the baby on the barbed wire. And there's again the Parasite Network steganography. I'm changing my terminology from iconography to steganography in this video because I think it's more appropriate. Iconography is just simply symbology. It represents easy to understand corollaries between symbol and what it might represent. The easy way to define something, right, is a better way to term it. But steganography, as it's stated, is the unique technique of hiding secret data within an ordinary non-secret file or message in order to avoid detection. The secret data is then extracted at its destination. The use of steganography can be combined with encryption as an extra step for hiding or protecting data. The word steganography is derived from Greek words staganos, meaning hidden or covered, and Greek root graph, meaning to write. So literally, somebody is encoding memetic messages through the process of steganography to hide meaning in words through the process of memetics, creating a parasite, a virus, as the game Metal Gear Solid 5 is about, to inflict into the vocal cords of us, to censor what we're going to say, and it all relates somehow to the spell that we're put under by this number 5. And I come back to this, and the pentagon structure, the truth that's going to be revealed to us, hopefully through going through this process of investigation, will also kind of lead us back around to some concepts about the Pentecost, the descent of the Holy Spirit. Now, I'm only going to touch on this here, guys, because I'm going to do a future video about this, but I think there's also something curious that meaning 5, 50 days after Christ rose again, the Pentecost occurred. And the Pentecost was the apocalyptic day, which means the day of final revelation. It is also called an eschatological day, which means the day of the final and perfect end. In Greek, eschaton means the end. For when the Messiah comes and the Lord's day is at hand, the last days are inaugurated, in which God declares, I will pour out my Spirit upon all flesh. This is the ancient prophecy to which the Apostle Peter refers to in the first sermon of the Christian church, which is preached on the first Sunday of the Pentecost. It's interesting, guys. This is something we'll go into further, because I think there's John the Baptist, of course, is the one who had the divine vision of the book of Revelation. And I think it's an encoded message, of course, for the chakra system. If anybody's really dives into it, you start to understand what the book of Revelation is all about. It's the human spirit reaching Christ consciousness. And look at what we have here, too. Serpent iconography. So that's a topic I'm going to actually leave hanging and re-summarize at the end of the video, but not to leave it hanging for too long, guys. This deserves its whole other video, I think, at some point in the future. But through the Roman system, which is DC, right? What we've come to understand is that they've hidden in plain sight from us what the truth is, and that includes in the Bible and all of these texts. So there's some decoding for us to do in relation to the Pentagon, the number 5, right? But I admit that perhaps I wasn't straightforward enough about the Sapiens to Ludens thing. Before we actually get into the text for Grant Hancock, pause for a moment and think about what this is saying. HIDEO KOJIMA is putting messages in here from Sapiens to Ludens, and quite frankly, here's kind of his philosophy behind this, part of the meme structure from Sapiens to Ludens. And on his site it says, we are homo ludens, those who play. From the moment we enter this world, we instinctively invent ways to have fun and share our inventions with those around us. We are not asked to do this, nor do we need reasons to create. It is simply who we are. And it's this phrasing right here that refers me back to essentially, definitionally, what a meme is. So he's putting out there that through programming, I think if I'm decoding this correctly, turning Homo sapiens into Homo ludens, those who play. Playing is not simply a pastime. It is a primordial basis of imagination and creation. Truth be told, Homo ludens, those who play, are simultaneously Homo faber, those who create. And I think those who create their own false reality by playing and buying into too many of the constructs of the world. Again, the jury's out. I don't know if Kojima is a benevolent writer tuning us on to this steganography in hopes to enlighten us and wake us up, or if this is all part of the process and these memes are just what we're dealing with. The skull face is something he's really popularized lately too, and I haven't really done a ton of work on that. But anyhow, enough of the video game stuff. What I'm going to do is just kind of leave it here and show you guys some of what I'm talking about in relation to Florida Maquis' work and the serpents. Right? And I've got a couple of these pages tagged in Graham Hancock's book. These are satellite images of something in Ohio called the Serpent Mound. These, I think, are LiDAR, in fact. Yeah, LiDAR. So you can see from three different perspectives this snaking sort of serpent pattern in the ground facing off this cliffside in Ohio. Graham Hancock goes and explores this thing at great length because he finds it curious that the ancients went to such great trouble to build this structure there in Ohio and for it to have such specific steganography, right? On the summer solstice sunset, it points directly at the sun. And just like a lot of our other monolithic structures that we know about, the pyramids of Giza and the Sphinx even that we talked about in a couple videos back, these are all divinely aligned with the sun. But something about this is leading us through the mimetic structure and to probably understand the number 5 a little bit better. The serpent representing, right, the number 5. What is the number 5? And there's something about the enlightenment of the sun coming down to the serpent, the number 5. And if we're going back just as a clue, the serpent, the sun representing the Son of God, Jesus, in this example, we're seeing kind of a clue as to what Jesus actually represented when he was here. Really cool stuff, right? I go on to the connections here. I show you this. This is a more detailed kind of technical drawing of the Serpent Mound. What's really cool is that they have the tip, what they're showing is the tip of this tail, where it curls inward, lines up perfectly with this point behind the head of this snake. And honestly, I've always thought this snake kind of looks like a sperm, guys. I don't know if there's anything else to that, the sperm and the snake, but anyway, irrespective of that, it faces true north. So this thing, though it curls around, snakes around, it has these perfectly symmetrical curvature to it. It actually, with its geometry, faces true north along those 2 points. And then, of course, here, at 300 degrees 1 minute, it faces west-northwest in the direction of the sun as it comes in and sets across the head of it on the summer solstice. And like we were talking about in the last video, there's a reason why I think this serpent iconography gives us a ton of hope. And you'll recall that Draco, being formed on this island in Ireland, through the very careful emplacement of these towers that they had. Of course, if we go back, we can look again at the Glendalough Tower, the one that, at least on this map, shows up right over here on the right. And we can see that what the ancients were trying to do when they were attempting to capture some energies from space to meditate and become higher conscious beings. For a refresher, when the star Sirius is closer to our sun, it's easier to do. But when Sirius is further away, it's surmised that you got to create these structures to do it. So in a similar fashion, I think that the ancients are building these mounds, the Native Americans in these cases, around this serpent iconography. And in fact, Draco. They aligned a lot of their monolithic structures in ancient America to Draco. Again, because it's the serpent, and the serpent means something to the human energy field and as it relates to Christ consciousness, in fact. So, putting some of these other icons aside for now. That kind of sums up as much as I wanted to discuss about Graham Hancock's work. I'll be going way more into this in the future, but since we talked last time also about the movement of the galaxy in the spiral pattern, I wanted to get some more work by a scientist helix solar system dynamic process. The helical helix solar system process is something that Kashava Bhatt theorized back in 2008 when he wrote this, and what the work of DJ Sadhu in that animation you saw last time is all based off of, with this concentric ring model of the planets tailing the comet of the sun. And curiously enough, you go through his book, he talks about the equinoctial cycles and how all the math works out to all this. But you get to this page here, and he literally talks about different celestial bodies and the way that they move throughout a system. And I don't know about you guys, but again, these look just like serpents. And the dynamic process of all sorts of different bodies in both the solar system and throughout the galaxy. I guess I'm trying to gauge my words as to how far I really want to go into this. I think again, that's another video entirely on that. But I'm again just drawing corollaries here back to the serpent and what it all means as it relates to the 5 and the pentagon. Taking this study just a little bit further, I've got one more book to share, Atlantis and the Coming Ice Age by Frank Joseph. And this is an incredible read in of itself. And with that Edgar Cayce reference work, I think the future video I do on this topic is going to also include a lot of his visions and how he saw the life of Jesus Christ play out, and what I take to be a very accurate prophetic interpretation of events. So anyway, a topic for a different day, of course, but the sacred numbers as they relate to the Atlanteans, and here's where it gets interesting. They revered a couple of different numbers, the 5 and the 6. And as this states, here it goes. As such, 5 represents humankind, as signified by the 5 senses and the 5 fingers to the hand. Manual dexterity, solar, male energy, solar, just like the sun, just like Christ consciousness. Light and enlightenment. It stands for conscious action, acquisition, material achievement, technology, scientific inquiry, organization, civilization, militarism, conquest, justice, honor, duty, hard facts, self-control, and discernment. 5 is the sacred center, symbolized by a circle enclosing a cross. Interesting, right? Circle enclosing a cross, just like this, the steganography of Christianity, or a single point at the center where the imperceptible is perceived, or where it manifests. The number 6 connotes female energy, because it's concerned with lunar cycles, nature, emotion, fecundity, liberty, instinct, premonition, creativity, peace, fairness, and forgiveness. So 5 is the male energy, but if you notice how many things are listed in there, there are some divine things having to do with male energy, light, enlightenment, conscious action, acquisition, material achievement, but then there's also militarism, conquest, justice, honor, duty, hard facts, self-control. So some of the things I suspect that are happening here with this Parasite Network on DC, see where I'm going with this, coming from the Pentagon, is they're hijacking the energy of the 5. The energy of the Pentagon. And they're using it through hijacking memes, or they're doing this through hijacking memes in the culture, through things like these video games that we're talking about. And well, frankly, they have a pretty good handle on it, I think. It's really hard to see through this stuff to understand it, but what we have on our hands is a mimetic parasite infecting the minds of all the people in the United States, and there's an incredible amount of steganography going on to hide it. So I'll leave it that. I'll leave that there. Before we leave the topic of the Kundalini activation, because I think what you're starting to see, guys, is the potential of the energy of the 5 is for us to use it, and not let these times to come be such that we're helpless. And this is kind of the message of Christ in a way, and to rise to the top. And so there's a lot of actual serpent steganography that applies here, and it's tough for a lot of Christians to come across and look at as believable because of all of the negative steganography of the serpent in the Garden of Eden and all that stuff. But I assure you, there's something to that. The helix pattern of the dance of our sun and Sirius, the helix pattern of DNA, and the helical pattern in which everything in the universe snakes through existence, as it were. One more curious thing, and then I'll finally put this video to bed. I thought I did. I thought I had another thing that I put up here. Oh, here it is. One last thing, guys. Since we're on the topic of Hideo Kojima, this steganography here of the Kundalini and the number 5 was only represented more plainly here in a re-release of his original game that he did, Metal Gear Solid, the Twin Snakes. Thanks, guys. Like, share, subscribe. I will see you next time to dive into some topics relating to how I think the media is using actual steganography to cover up UFOs, a personal experience I had with a video, and kind of peering through the BS memes that they created around that. So look out for more of that. Look forward to making more of these videos, and talk to you guys soon. Thanks.